Welcome along to the Saturday panel. It is a Christmas tradition like no other. It is the one weekend of the year. Adrian Barry and Ger Gilroy actually come into the office.
Hey, it's not even a weekend. We've pre-recorded this midweek.
It is the traditional now. How many years is this, Ger, off the ball Saturday panel? 7. A real honour for me. First time in the presenter's chair, taking over from the great man.
Who?
Dave.
I think Dave did the last one.
Hey.
Adrian Barry's here. How are you?
I'm good, Nathan. Thanks for you.
Hello, Nathan.
Ger Gilroy.
How are you?
I'm alright. A bit nervous now that you're suddenly all staring me down.
What are you actually doing this Saturday afternoon at what time or whatever time it is now?
1:30. I'm sitting in studio waiting for the Premier League to start.
Oh, okay.
It is an actual full day of Premier League football today.
I am currently making some chicken liver pate. It's a
nice,
family
yeah.
tradition.
Do you go heavy on the butter?
Yeah. Full layer of, the crust of butter at the top.
Right.
How do you make chicken? Give us the Cliff Notes.
You fry the chicken livers with some nice stuff.
Does that stink?
No. The first year I had to cut out all the sinew. It took like 40 hours.
Oh, that's nasty.
Then you realise you can just mush it through a sieve and away you go. So
Can you not get the butcher to do that?
What?
Can you not get the butcher?
No, because they're tiny little sinewy bits.
Is chicken liver pate the king of liver pates?
I've tried them all and I would say yes.
Right. I do like liver pate. I just really refuse to engage in any conversation about what goes into a good liver pate.
Well, when you think that the liver's job is to
Yeah.
take out all the toxins, and you think of the chickens that they're cutting up to make the chicken livers
It's
so
gonna be-
cheap.
it's gotta taste good.
It's like, oh, I wonder what nuclear... Why is it green?
I'm trying to find myself a little niche for the Christmas dinner. Something that I
can do.
Something that will become the traditional thing
Nathan
that I do.
tradition.
But nobody wants to give me that sort of responsibility.
What's the Mayo signature food?
Where do you think Mayo is?
Turkey.
Turkey and ham.
No, but like, is there not like a Boxty or a
Caribbean
what's the Dublin sausages?
Black pudding. The
What's it called?
current 2017 Mayo Person of the Year owns a big black pudding company in Newport, just outside Westport, and I presume he got it because he employs a lot of people and would have been cheaper to bring his business somewhere closer to a motorway. But he kept his business in Newport. And it's, I think certainly the talk on the night was it's more famous than Clonakilty black pudding.
Coddle.
Not more famous.
No,
What's it called?
Newport
Black pudding.
I haven't heard of it.
Did he win Entrepreneur of the Year? Is that?
He may have at some stage. He certainly won Mayo Person of the Year.
Coddle.
Yeah.
Coddle.
That was it,
well
yeah.
done. Yeah.
Coddle. What's coddle?
It's the Dublin sausages, and it's like a
Christmassy
stew with
tradition.
sausages, isn't it?
You know, there's a great tradition of people in Mayo staying local to their parish and not transferring out of their parish for glory, isn't there?
Oh, wow. Jeez, a Christmas steak at Donny Vaughan, as if the year hasn't been tough enough for him.
Yeah, leave Donny Vaughan.
Bloody hell. So I sent a traditional Christmas email to the three lads and asked them what were your thoughts on the year. Jer's response was a general, did that happen this year? Did that happen this year?
Yeah.
The one thing that came up most often was hurling. The greatest game on earth,
Phillips,
according
manager of the year.
Adrian Barry.
Discuss.
Why? What was so great about it this year?
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about it. Like, you only really start to think about these things when the email comes through going, we've got some stuff to discuss. What do
you
you
only
think?
really started thinking about this thing 20 minutes ago.
But it's funny because, like, I definitely have been thinking about it in a way that, like, I was never one of the... Kilkenny dominated for as long as they have done, and I think a lot of people were on the anti-Kilkenny bandwagon because at times it was a pretty popular thing to do, and they're a dominant team in a sport for that length of time. It's kind of easy to hate them, and I never really felt like that, or that's what I thought when Kilkenny were winning all those teams. I kind of thought, actually, this is a real privilege to see these amazing players, this constant regeneration of a team by Brian Cody, and that's what I thought at the time. And then they stopped winning, and other teams have started winning, and suddenly... I don't think I ever really fell out of love with hurling, but Jesus, over the last 12 months it's been exceptional. There's been so many brilliant stories, and like the dominance of Kilkenny was a great story, but it never allowed for those other stories to come up, like the Cork story this year, and they didn't get there in the end, but Jesus, what Cork achieved this year, beating the teams they beat in Munster. Like, teams have won easier All-Irelands than beating, was it Tipperary, Waterford, Clare? Teams have won far easier All-Irelands than that. Like, fantastic story. And like the importance of Cork in the grand scheme of Irish sport as well was another thing that suddenly it's like such a vast population centre in Irish society that actually when they're doing well, it's such a bloody rich story. The emergence of some of the players there, a brand new squad.
Better flags.
Well, that aside, notwithstanding, but the fact that they go and win Munster, they get to like the most unlikely All-Ireland semi-final, the fact that they Kieran Kingston rejuvenates its team and then goes, that's it, sort of, I'm out of here. So that story alone was brilliant. The Waterford story was incredible for a whole host of different reasons. I mean, you'll never win anything with defensive hurling like that being one of them. The openness of that entire Waterford team, the Austin Gleeson's story of a player who, I've said this before, but I don't know under how many other managers Austin Gleeson would flourish because of the style of player he is. And ultimately the Galway story that to go ahead and win the thing after first time since 88. The various sort of rich stories that we thought were there before they won it, and all the stories that emerged afterwards.
Galway was kind of an interesting story in that as soon as it became obvious that Tipperary were going to do what Tipperary often do, Galway looked fairly nailed on from a long way out. You know, we've talked about Galway for so many years, and can they, and then they don't. This was a year where I had little doubt from about July that Galway were going to do it. And that's a strange kind of feeling when it's a team who are bridging that kind of gap. And it was no surprise at any stage, any game that Galway won, you kind of thought, yeah, they just looked nailed on. Yeah,
the thing is,
it's like Mayo looking nailed on from early in the season and doing
and Galway have done that. I've been at Galway games even over the last few years where you think, geez, they're going to get it done.
Did you? I never believed in them.
Kilkenny and stuff. You kind of think.
I never believed in them before this year.
Yeah.
I always thought there was the fall coming at the end.
The fall could have come in the end, though.
Sure.
Not in the final. I don't think they ever look like they're going to lose the final. But in that Tip game, when it gets to a draw and they do manage to see it out, and Joe sees it out from under the stand, I was a little bit kind of like, all right, okay. I wasn't really sure that was.
Yeah, fair point.
That was definitely a bit of
the match I remember best is maybe Waterford Kilkenny. I was just, when I saw the email, I thought, what is the one that stands out? Was that the
Port Stewart?
Yeah, the Irish Open was on.
Yeah. And when you think
amazing.
of, in hindsight, Austin Gleeson's season, and there's been a lot of criticism of him and coming in as hurler of the year and not living up to the hype. Like that night, he was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The entire Water performance, that Jamie Barron's goal was one of the undoubted highlights of the hurling summer. But that night, the little flicks, the little touches from Austin Gleeson, like against that Kilkenny side, all right, maybe not where they were 6-7 years ago, but to still be able to stand up, like that seemed to get very quickly forgotten about.
Yeah, and the whole pub was up for Waterford. You know, there was still.
Well, it's the first time I've nearly seen a proper row.
Yeah,
like there was there was a little split of, there was about 10 Kilkenny lads, I'd say, up in a stag party for the weekend. There was a little bit of back and forth. Yeah. The interest in the hurling championship then, and you're saying greatest game on earth, but well, the openness of the championship sort of puts into contrast maybe with the football title, that when Kilkenny aren't dominating, you do have 6, 7, 8 teams of a very similar level. Like, it gives us what we want during the summer, which is competitive games, which isn't what we're getting in football. And like that game is beginning of July. That comes even after we get Wexford, Kilkenny in the Leinster semi-final. It gives us something from middle of June all the way through until August, where actually at the football championship now we're very much at the stage where until it gets to the middle, nothing matters a damn. And the great thing about hurling is we're probably looking at the same thing again for the next 2-3 years. Like, do you think this Galway side are going to go and dominate it?
I don't know, but I think that's like, it'll be interesting to see what the round robins in the two provincial championships is. That just playing out string for meaningless games where ultimately there's no repercussions?
I don't know. It's very interesting to know.
It feels a bit like that. In terms of the football, the Super 8s are going to be more games, but ultimately no one can see Kerry or Dublin or Mayo losing 2 games in the Super 8s, which is really what you have to lose to not get through.
So when we're watching hurling during the summer, one of the great things is that every game means something. What happens now when maybe it doesn't mean quite as much? Like, is Cork against Waterford as enthralling in the 4th round of the Munster League?
I think it's going to be like looking at a piece of art where you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty nice, and then you move on. Whereas actually those games that where they have to slit each other's throats, it's like it actually matters.
I mean, we might just all have to shift our interpretation of the whole thing and just enjoy it for the spectacle that it is. Hope certain games, like there's probably enough enough games each weekend for one of them to just take on a life of its own and kick off into something brilliant. So, I mean, I'd rather throw a lot of mud at the wall and get something brilliant. And like, as for the football, I mean, Mayo kept the thing alive. My only memory of the first 2 or 3 months is Mayo almost losing about 18 times and getting through. But yeah, the hurling, it was amazing.
I don't know
really
if like the Galway, it's hard to know if they're going to go and dominate it. Like I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but the hunger they would have had to get that thing, I don't know if, like, 88 necessarily is a huge driving factor for, like, Joe Canning and these people. I suspect that it probably isn't, but, like, for them to get over the line just for them themselves, like, is a huge driving force that might actually obviously be in Waterford's favour a little bit next year. I do believe that Cork team are a team that are coming and actually, you're not having it.
No. Well, so like their manager.
So yeah, and who knows what happens on the back of that. I mean, that's definitely
came from nowhere.
That's definitely a blow. But they came from nowhere, right? But also, they were a team that were totally written off. Like, you look at the commentary from 12 months previous, it was like, this team are useless. They're a bunch of junior hurlers. They won't go anywhere fast. And like, the manager might have a bit of an impact on it, but I don't believe that they're going to disappear back to the perceived level. And actually, I don't also believe that perceived level was the emotion of, like, a team that is 2014, the last final they've contested, and, like, from a Cork point of view, that's like, Cork hurling is the thing that you associate with Cork. Like, the football is kind of the give and take a bit. The soccer is like, how many people did it come to the FAI Cup final this year? Was it like 12,000? Like, that's not a huge number of people actually when you think about it, for the most significant one-off game in domestic football. So Cork hurling is the thing, and people tend to get very emotional about it.
The other interesting thing, I mean, you still think Tipperary, if you're positioning Galway as the who can stop Galway, it's Tipperary. I mean, within a point, as Ger said, the Joe Canning point, it's just hard to know if they spend this winter killing each other, then there's retribution over what went wrong, and the whole thing falls apart, or whether, a bit like a couple of years ago, they regroup, they get hungry again, and they're training like demons right now. And if they are, then they're more than capable of stopping.
I'd say they're still
Galway.
Piss, but
You just sense with Galway, and particularly with Joe Canning now as the fulcrum of the team, that he's going to be driving them on again. And for me, Joe Canning was one of the stories of the year. That I can't believe he didn't win Irish Sports Person of the Year. If we were going down the route, I know he didn't win Hurler of the Year, but if we were going down the route... Did he win Hurler of the Year?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
No. Never mind that then. He definitely deserved to win Hurler of the Year.
Yeah. Did he win Hurler of the Year?
Yes, he did, which is why he was nominated for the Sports Person of the Year.
Right.
But like, we're going to be going through our most listened to podcasts on
Do you guys work in sport at all?
No, it was who won? I was thinking about man of the match in the Ireland final, which wasn't him.
Yes, the Tony Keady, the night Tony Keady died, is the second most listened to podcast of the entire year,
right,
which is quite incredible and shows the esteem again that he's held in. But the way he took that on board into the final and was able to channel it correctly, and the way he handled himself after the final when he's there with Tony Keady's daughter, the interview he did with Vincent Hogan that weekend, where we got to see a little bit more, know a little bit more, going to Syria afterwards, everything about him. Now I think the public fully appreciates the greatness of Joe Canning and finally sees the character.
Okay, I accept everything you're saying, but also it's criminal that it takes him winning an All-Ireland for everybody to do that, because I would suspect that a bunch of the Mayo footballers are just as stand-up and brilliant people as Joe is, and for us as a country or as sports lovers not to fully appreciate that because they haven't won an All-Ireland is frankly bollocks. Like, I always thought Joe Canning was that person. I don't think he's changed in my eyes because he's this, like, one Celtic cross has come his way.
I would kind of disagree with you, Nathan. I think everyone got Canning a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, kind of realised a couple of years ago he was a serious guy. Not, eschewed the kind of nonsense, didn't want fame for fame's sake. Thought he was a really serious fella, knew his own mind, no nonsense, real decency to him. And I think the whole country loves the Mayo team. I think everyone wants the Mayo team to win an All-Ireland, but if you talk to anyone who watches them on any kind of regular basis, I think they've huge respect for the Mayo team. I think you give people a bit more credit. I don't think Canning winning an All-Ireland or Mayo players winning an All-Ireland will change how we see them.
Sure, I think he's been more... I actually think this year, even before he won the All-Ireland, like the Vincent interview, there's a piece with Dave that he did earlier in the year that really stands out for me as well about... It was totally around that topic of whether he gets defined by winning the All-Ireland or not, but I actually think he's been way more open this year than he's been in previous years into elements like that and about his family and stuff that have maybe personalised him a bit more, because there can be a bit of... I mean, particularly around GA, a bit of coldness of communication and like a lack of understanding of personalities, and particularly in hurling, for the obvious reasons. But I think he's been a bit more open. I think that's probably endeared him a little bit more to the public. But I mean, I think it's inarguable that like the sports people shouldn't be like, it's a nonsense. And I actually, there's probably a degree of truth in what you're saying, that some people will sort of... always be that one-dimensional reflection of, well, sure, look, wasn't he always a choker, regardless of There'll always be that. Like, that isn't to say that 100% of people are sports fans feel like that, but you'll always have that element. And at least from his point of view, he gets to take that off the table.
Maybe, yeah, but like, who cares about those people? He didn't want to do that Vincent Hogan interview that week. Not really.
Right.
It was a sponsors thing. He was meant to do it earlier in the season, and it hadn't happened. And so the only kind of viable date from Vincent's point of view, understandably, was, well, look, I need to get it done before this Tipperary game because it mightn't be worth a whole lot afterwards. And so he gave Vincent like 2 hours, Vincent was saying on the Sunday paper review the next day, and was brilliant and open. But I mean, he certainly didn't love the idea of it going out the day before the Tipperary game, but went with it anyway.
Looking at football, you felt Mayo were the most compelling story for the majority of the summer?
Yeah. I tweeted that out on the 1st of July. I was just checking back there to see when it was, and got like, oh, well, it's great the way they always lose. Because they're losers, it's all bollocks. And actually, it wasn't. They were amazing the whole way through because they played that brinkmanship against Tipperary and against Derry and then against Roscommon. And it made no sense. It just didn't make any sense. It was like, it was almost like it had seeped into their bones that somehow we need to make this as interesting as a big game in Croke Park, and they couldn't shake that. And then when they shook it in Croker, they were brilliant and really should have won. They should have won.
It was the first year I thought they had it in the final.
Yeah.
With about 10 minutes to go, I thought they really have it. I never felt that last year.
Feeling with 7 minutes to go and thinking this is actually going to happen, which maybe was the problem.
Are you saying that don't want to be misrepresenting your point here, Ger. Are you saying that
you're in the media? That's okay.
yeah, this is what happens. That Mayo don't or didn't have the capacity to get up to a level when they were playing teams that they didn't suspect were sort of in there. No, but sorry, I'm just so. I think my thought on that would be that that's not a great reflection on them. Do you know what I mean? Like that they're that deep inside their heads that this is where this Mayo team needs to go.
It's not fairly natural at the end of the 6 or 7 years that most of them have been on the go that playing against Derry in the qualifiers doesn't get the juices flowing the way Kerry in a replay in Limerick or Kerry in a replay in Croker.
But that's the big difference as well between this side and this Dublin side. This Dublin side has seen a rejuvenation. There is a big difference between the Dublin team now and the one in 2011. Whereas with Mayo,
it's the same guys.
But my point is, if they're struggling to get themselves up for those games that are, I mean, ultimately as significant as the Kerry game because they get beaten at that point, they are out, and they came so close to the wire in some of those games, right up to the wire. My point is that, that to me, fairly overtly demonstrates that there are significant issues with them in terms of getting their heads in the right place. Because Dublin are obviously the benchmark for everything great now, but Dublin don't necessarily.
The point Nathan just made
with those
different team every time. That Dublin's resources, they can pick 10 different players from 5 different players from game to game. Like Conor Callan didn't exist 12 months ago in people's consciousness. There was a bunch of that team who've kind of come through over the last couple of years who've become key players. Paul Flynn didn't play any meaningful minutes until the final
for 2 years. Mayo used to do this. You forget under James Horan they were hammering sides. They were putting sides away under Horan, destroying them. They've almost come out of that phase, and I sort of agree with you in a way because it does feel now like you're approaching the end for this group, and so they've gone from the phase where they were enthusiastic about hammering everyone and the All Ireland final, and they've now entered the autumn/winter, and it's like.
Everything's a battle.
We got to save ourselves a little bit, and we do seem to match the level of whatever team we're playing against. And amazingly, that does include Dublin. So there's probably another year or two of that in them.
That's what makes them so interesting, though.
But that's why the Super 8s could be dangerous for Mayo.
Most definitely.
I think of all the sides out there, Mayo have to be most worried about the Super 8. With serious ambitions, the Super 8s for Mayo is just oh my God, they're going to have to find a way back to hammering the lesser teams. They can't go through another odyssey because they'll just be absolutely spent.
Well, although the other side of that is, let's face it, any team that could do with a rejuvenation of the Championship to any other format to just try and get them over the effing line is Mayo.
Yeah, and that was there all year. Watching them back in the league, I remember they were terrible for most of the league. Yeah. They played Tyrone up in Omagh, and it was the most gruesome game. It was the most hard-hitting game of the entire year, and Mayo won it by a point. And at that stage, I kind of felt, when it gets to it in the middle of summer, when they have to play Tyrone or Kerry or Dublin, they can get back to that level. The only issue is they weren't winning those games against Derry and Cork with an arrogance of, we're going to be fine. We get the job done.
Yeah, they were panicked.
They were panicked.
Yeah.
There was a lot of luck along the way. I remember I was sitting on the dart trying to watch it in the RT player the game against Cork and having this terrible feeling of, geez, this team have given us a lot.
Yeah.
What's life like in August and September?
Yeah.
What the hell am I going to talk about when we're not there? and still Conor Loftus pops up.
If Loftus doesn't come on and score that goal, it probably is.
It probably is over. And then, like, again, you're looking at these players probably a lot harsher than we are once again. But you got to suspect they're going to be somewhere quite close.
They get back again, and a bit like this year when they just turned it on against Roscommon in the replay. Everyone goes, grand. Because we wasted the whole summer going, what does this performance mean for Mayo? Yeah. And some people saying they're finished, other people saying it's fine.
I definitely thought they were done. But
so
the other part is that they, maybe that was a new format, obviously, and it doesn't lend itself to playing Longford in Pearse Park in sort of deepest, darkest June and then getting knocked out. It doesn't lend itself necessarily to that, but like the other side of it is that everything we're talking about leads to them. This is the downside of the decline.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is the beginning of some kind of decline. But
Teams squeak that out all the time.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there could be two or three more years. Like we've all stayed in a relationship an extra year or two than we should have.
Have we? Says the man getting married this year.
Cork did it in 2010. They squeaked it an All-Ireland out with a team that was clearly way better in 07, 08, 09.
Yeah.
Is there enough, like Conor Loftus coming through? Is there enough? Because you need a bit of that. You will need a bit of that.
This has been a problem for the last 3-4 years. You would hope that they get and they are getting one or two players. Like Jason Doherty wasn't there at the start of this run. He's come in. Brendan Harrison wasn't there at the start of this run. But like you got to wonder, do you get another year like this out of Andy Moran?
Well, he was like a new player this year. So
exactly, and he's
but you get Lee Keegan back.
You get Lee Keegan, or maybe you get Cillian O'Connor. Like I think that is the key. You get Cillian O'Connor and Diarmuid O'Connor back as being two of the best footballers in the country, and Donny
Vaughan is suddenly playing at a significant club, and it's like it just kicks everything.
He's probably suspended for the first round of the championship.
We should talk about Dublin. Really,
I was just going to say, why is it we spend all this time talking about Dublin?
Because I do think the Mayo, like, ultimately were the best story of the football championship up until the final 2 or 3 minutes of it, at which point Dublin win the All-Ireland. Like, I do think James McCarthy was the best footballer in the country over the year, and obviously I was a little bit biased because I had to bet him, but there were just games where the game was over because James McCarthy was killing midfield and striding through and scoring goals, and like Dublin get no credit for the things that they do, which are brilliant because they're now routine because Dublin do them all the time. It's this circle they're trapped in of excellence where we're like, well, of course you're going to be excellent. You're Dublin. Whereas if you compare and contrast this Dublin team with the team that Pat Gilroy inherited, or even his first season, like if you could see the bones of the current team in that, people would have said you were mad. Now they're like one of the greatest teams in the history of the sport. They don't really get that much credit for it.
Agreed.
Do they not?
No, not really. I think we do assume it's routine. Like, I thought Kildare would do all right this year.
And we did.
I don't know. Like, you lads were going into the Leinster final this year. You were
like Mayo supporters.
Honestly, I'd never heard anything like it. The two it was like Kildare. I was like, lads, what are you on about?
I knew they'd lose.
Come on now.
10 points would have been fine.
The thing about, I mean, what puts it into context, on occasion they seem to rise above routine. Like Mayo hit 59% shot conversion in the All-Ireland final, which puts them number one of All-Ireland finals over the last 18 years. Until Dublin in that same final hit 67%. It's unheard of, yeah. So Mayo 59%, Dublin 67%.
Which probably makes it the greatest game of football ever played.
I mean, like, it's a standard that we haven't seen before, and of course we end up a couple of months later talking about the Mayo story. But when you think about that alone,
whose stats are they?
They were in the papers the next day. It might have been Christy O'Connor. Right. I'm not sure, but they were legit anyway. And because even I mentioned it to Aidan O'Shea, he was in studio a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, right." Because he was saying, like, if we go out and we aim for 59-60%, that we kind of win the game.
Yeah.
So what Dublin did to beat that by 7 percentage points under the pressure, it's scary stuff. And Jim Gavin gets no credit. I agree with that. I don't give Jim Gavin enough credit. We don't on the show. He didn't win Manager of the Year. You just assume all the resources, all the players. All he has to do is manage a self-managing team. But actually, you think about it, to stop any wobbles, to stop any, like...
To survive the wobbles.
Yeah, to survive the wobbles, for sure. And look, I think he should have started Jim Connolly in the final. I do think part of his reaction to full time was, I didn't have a good day at the office here today and I've got away with it. And that was that's why he wasn't euphoric, I think, at full time. So he's not perfect, but I mean, to keep these lads on track, which is not easy in Dublin, and we've seen it before, is phenomenal. So I agree with you. I don't think I give them enough credit until I stop and talk about it like this.
The thing that it's possibly true, I just think that Dublin fans particularly, we get so much crap over it, like this anti-Dublin thing, because we talk frequently about the Mayo story, which, to be fair, there's probably a degree of truth in so much, but it is a fascinating story. But like, stop being so obsessed with like there being an agenda or a bias or not getting enough credit. Stop obsessing about it. Revel in the fact that you're.
I think that you're from
like year after year
there, and we've never had a team that
I would love to be to not get enough credit.
But
you know what I mean? Like to be in a position where
you feel it. Like that's we've
so from my standing point,
pro Mayo. We're not anti-Dublin.
You're pro Mayo.
I'm pro Mayo.
I'm actually pro Dublin. I think that what they're doing as a football team and the style of play and their evolution is amazing. And it's like it is something that we're all going to look back on. And I kind of hope that Mayo win All Ireland over the next while and do rejuvenate so that they have a rival ultimately when the history books come to record it that does service to them. But equally, I kind of hope they do the 5 in a row because they're that good. It probably should have done the 5 in a row already. Like, there's that one game against Donegal separating them from that now.
It's the point. The point for me is the Kilkenny argument that these are it's an amazing team to look at. This Dublin team, like they do so much phenomenal stuff, but
Kilkenny didn't have a rival.
It's brilliant to be alive now and to be looking at this quality football.
Who were good enough.
But it would help if Mayo won the All Ireland, right? Because there's just other stories, and that's just a neutral. There's nothing anti-Dublin about that. Like beautiful football to look at.
Is that not an example?
It's just a neutral view.
Like maybe not be anti-Dublin, but again where they don't get enough credit. That all right, there was maybe at times Kilkenny's dominance almost felt like it was getting a bit boring. But even during that, they were getting huge credit. Everyone was talking about Tommy Walsh, JJ Delaney being the greatest defenders of their generation, Henry being the greatest forward of his generation. You still don't really hear that.
I don't know.
We do have a lot of people, like James Horan jumps to mind, says the best team we've ever seen. You do get a lot of that, but you can only repeat yourself after each Leinster whooping so often on a Monday. I think a lot of people are saying they're the best team.
And I don't accept the point about the individual players. Like Diarmuid Connolly gets a huge amount of praise. Stephen Cluxton is being talked about as maybe one of the greatest GA players of all time. Like,
what do you want,
revolutionised the
game.
What do you
want?
Just want more praise for these guys.
There is a nasty vocal minority of Dublin fans, and I'd say it's about a percentage of the entire county. And they're actually a bit nasty. I've learned that this year. Ignore them. The vast majority of Dublin fans are right thinking. They get that their team gets a lot of credit. They understand why Mayo are a draw for people. So there was a very vocal minority.
When they picked me up in the taxi and decide to take me to task about things that had been said on the radio. I was like, must have been around.
Being held to account for your own opinions, Nathan is.
He was a Dubs fan. He was giving out about the Sunday game and about Brawley, and he's a bloody disgrace. I tell you, they hate the Dubs. And you're not much better.
Hey.
I heard you last night. Whoa. Just drop me to work and let's not have a conversation about these things.
Taxis to work, Jesus.
He's like an Irish Larry David, isn't he? It's like this guy who sort of finds himself in all these weird and wonderful situations.
You wanted to talk Tommy Walsh?
Tommy Walsh is the find of the year, Nathan.
Hey, you said it. My highlight of the year was All-Ireland Hurling Final Day. We had just been to the Electric Picnic with the aforementioned Tommy Walsh. I'll tell you what, Dave, you see some things at Electric Picnic. You go up to Body and Soul, you go into the Zen Arena where people are getting their massages and people are in their hot tubs and they're doing their yoga. You see all sorts of sights and sounds. I've seen some things over the last couple of days, but Tommy Walsh, front row for X Club 7, tops the lot. Tommy, explain yourself.
Nathan, these things that we speak about off air aren't supposed to make their way into the public forum, but I have to say, if any of the teams here give the exhibition S Club 7 gave last night, we're in for a good day.
How many of S Club 7 were there?
There was only 3.
I hear.
Three actually performing.
Thing for me, Nathan, was Rachel Stevens wasn't there, so it kind of half ruined it for me. But listen, we quickly got into it and we had a great night.
So who were the 3?
The 3, well, listen, there was the blonde girl on the right.
Careful now. You were there with your wife, we should point out. Did you hang around for 5 or did you just leave it at S Club 7?
Yeah, well, listen, I had to go off there for a while there, maybe to get a few drinks and that, so I missed the start of 5, but when I came back they were in full flow, and it was great, to be honest. It was in the throwback tent, so it's like that, and we all love going back, I suppose, to our younger days, and but no, S Club 7 for me.
You can't not love hurling more by listening to Tommy Walsh. The very first Sunday he was on, the highlight was when there was a goal scored. It might have been between Waterford and Cork in the Munster semi-final. He said, "Nathan, you probably remember, it's just like the goal in the 84 Munster semi-final." Nah. You really
yes, Tommy.
You really don't know me at all, Tommy.
I think he's been part of my reason why I've really got back in love with hurling this year. Like, you can't not listen to him and then want to go out and pick up a hurl every single time. Like, to be a kid listening to Tommy Walsh preach the gospel.
Is that
Must be a thing of.
John Fenton's goal in the 84 semi, was it?
I'll take your word for it.
I think he's class. Yeah. Find it. Who uncovered him, Joe? Who found this great talent?
Who's the Simon Cowell amongst us?
That sort of talent.
Larry David.
You just couldn't miss it. You just couldn't miss it. You also want to touch on the future being pretty bright. A lot of exciting young Irish talent.
Yeah, like it wasn't.
We're sticking fairly rigidly here to Adrian Barry's list.
Well, we've kind of wandered around, haven't we?
How long do we have left?
Out. Yeah, I see the clock. Not very good at managing time.
Very briefly.
You've made a mess of the clock here as presenter in your first off the ball Saturday.
Well, I'm learning from the best there. Just keep going, and someone else will sort it out.
Yeah, very briefly, it's like the emergence of the likes of Conor Callaghan, like that again is another reason to love hurling. Rice at West Ham, Larmour for Leinster that I've been raving on about for the last few weeks.
Give me first names here.
Jordan and
what's the surname?
Jordan Larmour. I was actually looking up to see where the L-A-R-M-O-U-R.
Larmour.
He goes to one rugby match.
Yeah.
I don't think I was it.
You weren't doing
Was, yeah.
No.
And Gina Akpamos is in the athletics as well. Like it's been brilliant stuff over the last while.
Mona
McSharry, of course, the young sports person of the year.
Conor Callaghan, of course.
He mentioned
Con first.
Could potentially have been.
I did mention
sports person of the year.
Yeah,
I'm kind of good at the Con situation. So we named our child Con this year, and like it was a pretty unique thing when we did it in January, and then suddenly this kid comes on the scene who's like one of the greatest
Half of
GA
Dublin's
players
going to
of
be
all
called
time.
Con.
Exactly.
Oh no, it'll be like John Paul's everywhere.
JP's.
What's the current Pope's name?
Oh yeah,
Francis.
Right, so there'll be lots of Francis's.
When he comes, yeah.
To think it's only this year, last year's Christmas panel, that if we'd mentioned somebody's child, Adrian would have been rolling his eyes.
Oh Jesus, no children! What? You got all about the children
we were 8.5 months pregnant at that point, so I would have been on board.
Declan Rice, youngest player to start a Premier League game this season.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, which is obviously something that's quite promising.
I don't want to sort of say too much, Nathan. We've already spent too much time on my
with your points, Joe. But you've golf down, so we could just spend the rest of the entire panel talking golf. You were at the Open, Jordan Spieth.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. Well,
don't you have a whole podcast for this?
I guess you were there, which was your highlight. I'm surprised you overlooked the Masters. Sergio Rose playoff.
Just Sergio's not I can't get on board with Sergio. I know he's not a very nice person in lots of ways.
Really?
He's matured a lot lately.
He
has turned a corner, but he was just a brat for a long way around.
He hardly does an interview these days without mentioning his wife, I've noticed.
Yeah.
He looks like a wee.
Johnny Miller is the best golf pundit around, basically. And Miller said that I'll keep this brief, so you guys stay with me. Johnny Miller said that Jordan Spieth played the greatest finishing stretch he'd ever seen. So like you're talking about something historic here. The short version, Spieth starts on the Sunday, going for his third major, and he's all over the shop. He has 3 bogeys in his first 4 holes, and then stabilises things a little bit and gets to the 13th and drives it 1,000,000 miles right, and spends 30 minutes. I mean, if you watched it, you won't forget it.
Yeah.
The drama of it. 30 minutes.
Why was he not told to hurry up, or what? How was he allowed away with that?
I mean, there was a lot of confusion over the rules because he wanted to take a drop 20, 30 feet back, which was in the driving range, and he wasn't going to rush that because obviously a rules infringement would be disastrous for him, and the rules officials were like, I don't even... Because usually the driving range is out of bounds at every course, but Birkdale had some quirk whereby it was so close to the fairway, I have to presume, that it was in play.
Right.
And so, I don't even know what the reason, because you can have out of bounds right by the fairway. For some bizarre reason,
but Spieth is one of these sports people as well who seems to know the rule book better than the referees.
Totally. You'll see him year round telling the referees, no, you're wrong. And so it was like the calm of this guy to just take his time. And it was the greatest bogey I've ever seen. And that's saying something, you come through the Woods era. So he takes 30 minutes to get a bogey. And then Matt Kuchar, who's played great, has no chance because Spieth goes 5 under in the next 5 holes and holds these monstrous putts. Like the thing about Spieth to win his third major, even more so than Tiger, who had far more ability than Spieth, it's like...
Jared's lapping it up there as he yawns, right?
I blame my kids.
Honestly, if you don't find this interesting sport, I don't get you, because it's unbelievable. Like, I get the PGA Tour events are dull for a lot of people, but this was unbelievable drama sustained over 2 or 3 hours, where every shot was very important. Spieth, more than any other golfer, seems to do things with his mind.
He's also likeable.
Yeah, he's angry, he's grumpy, he talks a lot during rounds. He's really interesting to watch. People outside of golf think he's boring. He's not boring. But he's doing things with his mind that, more so than any other golfer, you just think it's a magic. You think he's a Jedi. So that was just the best 2 or 3 hours of golf, certainly, of the year. And McIlroy's off doing his little retreat at the moment. The word from everybody in the know is that McIlroy is actually working really, really, really hard. Like, this is legit. And so, you know, I can't wait for next year, because for the last 5 years, there's always been something with Rory. He's either rolled his ankle or broken up with Wozniacki, or he's got married, or there's his rib cage, or he's changed equipment. There's always been something. So we might actually see McIlroy with no issues for the first time since he won 2 majors in 2014. And that'll be amazing. So that's my golf spiel done with.
Yeah, like 2018 is going to be exciting in golf because Tiger's back, and Spieth and McIlroy and Thomas and Fowler have all done as much as can be asked of them in terms of promoting the game, but people don't care. People don't want to listen.
No.
I'm interested to see what happens then if Tiger gets back competing and they can go and beat him. Does that actually take them to a whole new level? Does that take golf to a whole new level? Like, maybe not. Maybe it's gone. And I'm even thinking of going on a golf podcast for the last year, and I think it's become more difficult for everybody to go, wow, we love these guys, as Rory goes and plays with Trump. And then you look at Tiger at the President's Cup, and it seems as though he's hiding from Trump. He doesn't want to be pictured with him. And 3 weeks later, Tiger goes and plays with Trump. Like, these
Has
are the
Spieth
very...
played with Trump?
I would be shocked if he hasn't.
I think if he gets the invite, he will. And if he hasn't already. Yeah.
At least he hasn't. I don't have any pictures of him playing with him.
No.
The reports coming out were that the only senior PGA Tour professional, or leading PGA Tour professional, not to vote for Trump was Phil.
The only one.
And I suspect that may have been that he had some sort of personal relationship with Hillary.
But sure, the idea of golf, of all sports, having some sort of an issue with somebody of the character of Donald Trump is farcical. Is that? I mean, are we seriously suggesting that golf is going to be the sport that takes a stance against Donald Trump?
I still do find it surprising that someone like Ricky Fowler, who's young, clued in, is a big Trump supporter.
But I mean,
just find it
there's
hard.
I mean that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know by extension if you're suggesting
Like,
that
there's
Ricky
also-
Fowler is sort of along that spectrum of politics. But I mean, there are plenty of people of that age profile that,
No, I know.
you know.
He just strikes me. He's such a. You look at him and think, oh, he's a fairly liberal guy.
Yeah.
But
Because he's an orange.
wears orange, long hair. He's laid back. He's kind of cool.
Just got a massive tax cut though, so he's you know, probably weighed up the pros and cons, and he's quite happy. The worst story of the year was the fact that we're not talking about going to Russia, that we're all going to be stuck here for the entire year. It all seems so different when the crowd and the tannoy played Dear Near Near and just kicked it off at the right time.
Glad you didn't continue that guitar riff there. That was.
Yeah. Best use of the tannoy in world sports history.
You see, I'm not quite sure. The GEA this year had a wonderful moment. Teams coming out just in time for the second half of the football final, maybe in for the hurling final as well. And they played Bowie, Let's Dance. And it's just perfect. It was like, boom.
I'm surprised
This
you
is
could hear
on.
it behind the glass in the corporate box.
I know, I see when I'm there for Northern Ireland final, I actually go and watch it here.
Oh yeah, with the
You're
glass
working.
of wine in your hand.
With the glass of wine in my hand.
Yeah.
Obviously. No, I was off work.
A close third to those two as best use of a tannoy was half-time the other week in the Leinster-Exeter game, where the tannoy shut the hell up.
Oh yeah,
And everybody really enjoyed half-time because there were
Have a
kids
chat.
playing and they had a chat.
Yeah.
And the more of that I can get, particularly at half-time, just leave people alone. It was amazing.
Evidence,
I just remembered
piece evidence number 574 that Joe Malloy is a rugby man. By the
Well,
way.
of course, naturally I was there. But
I just
don't
remembered
like to
my
talk about it.
almost worst moment of the entire year, which was as somebody who likes to take control of the tannoy himself, or once did. Ireland-Wales. So obviously, like, the biggest football game of the year. So I am doing the tannoy announcement. So I'm announcing the teams onto the pitch and reading out the two starting
How much does that pay?
11s.
How much does that pay?
Not as it's the FAI, Joe. So you know, if you get paid,
He's
you're
just
doing well.
like talking himself rapidly out of it. Like you can plead like there's a way to answer that question. Go on.
Cards on the table,
fine,
Nathan.
I'm not
It's
doing it
Christmas.
anymore.
Come on.
All right, John.
Oh, well, then you
So-
can
Well,
review.
you're definitely not doing it anymore now. That's
So I've just done this, but I'm also doing sideline reporting for off the ball. I'm also doing sideline reporting for off the ball.
All right.
So we're just about to go. We're in an ad break. So we're having the type of conversation you have during an ad break, which
Yeah.
is not the type of conversation you would maybe be certainly broadcast on air, and certainly not the type of conversation you'd want to be broadcast to 50,000 people in a stadium. Unfortunately, I pick up the wrong microphone.
ooh.
What did you say?
I think I literally just said something like, well, and I was about to go into some sort of a rant and heard instantly, that sounds very like can I hear this? That sounds very like me.
Big save.
Oh my god.
Larry David strikes
oh my
again.
god, this could have been
Because you could have opened with a curse.
well hello.
Yeah.
It would have been, yeah. So ultimately, the year started on a down note. Then, like, Seamus Coleman's injury was so horrific, and we simply never recovered.
I actually do feel like Seamus Coleman's injury is this kind of key moment in everything. You wonder if, like, Coleman is there, like, if we go 2-0 up against Denmark, do we go through? Like, is that just one of those games where at that point we realise stop going forward and sit back?
I think so.
And I think I always go back to the point you made about Coleman in the game against France, in that very opening 30 seconds in the lead up to Robbie Brady's penalty, where he keeps his composure, he steps back inside, he does the right thing. Even though we were creating chances, we still weren't doing the right thing. We had nobody when we went one up to say, let's do the right thing.
Yeah. We're entertaining a conversation here that we might have been a better team than Denmark.
I know, but look, 5-1 wasn't a right reflection.
5-1 was, 3-1 probably was.
You can win games where you're not the best team all the time. It's football. It happens like 9 times out of 10.
They blitzed us. It wasn't like there was some sort of a Rizla paper between. They blitzed us.
They didn't, though. They didn't.
If we go 3-1, right? I accept it wasn't.
No, I think if we go 2-0 up, which was a distinct possibility in the first 20 minutes, then it's another Cardiff. I actually think it finishes 2-0.
I don't know.
I think we drop back. We handed them the game after half time.
That goal, definitely, we go on and win.
Yeah. Like, you can't. The 5-1 is bizarre. The shot across the goal.
Because he's done that.
He can do that, yeah.
The introduction of his career was that goal in 9 times in 12 games or something. You're like, we've seen this movie, just stick it in the way you always do.
Yeah.
But, sports personality of the year.
Who was ultimately saying that, actually, as a football man, even at 1-0 up, this game is a million miles away from us.
Yeah, Stephen Kenny was watching it, and I was getting very excited, thinking, bloody hell, these guys are on the ropes. We're going to get the second goal. We're all over them. The game plan suits us. It's very open. He's like, this doesn't suit us.
Okay.
They are all over us. They're cutting us apart. Whenever they get in the ball, they're cutting us apart. So he's looking at it a slightly different way.
I just wish
emotions are probably getting the better of me.
I just wish at 1-0 we had said, right, we know the drill. Back we go.
Yeah. Who is that guy? Who's the player who should do that?
Shane Duffy?
Or again, is that what Giles would say? Well, there's a manager and an assistant manager on the sideline.
You can't do it in the middle of the game. Like it has to be the players on the pitch. But are they not trained to do it?
Don't know.
Well, I mean,
that's the bigger issue.
You would suggest no. I mean, like, that's the short story. And then, I mean, even like there seems to be a culture in the team almost of, like, nobody was surprised, right? Like, they score 1, they score 2, they score 3. Yeah. Like, it totally, that 20 minutes actually was it's the 20 maddest minutes almost of sport of the entire year. Yeah. Like the Jesus, this, because I wasn't having the Stephen Kenny thoughts at that time for sure, was like, Jesus, we could actually do this thing. This is phenomenal.
It was tough for them to suddenly drop back, I accept, because 1, the atmosphere was unbelievable, the crowd were up, and they'd taken a lot of stick for the performance in Copenhagen. And then 2, with the McLean chance and with the Murphy chance,
it looked like the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. You were thinking, like, it's there for us now. We score the second, we're home. So I understand in those circumstances it must be very difficult to go, now, even though we're creating chances, let's all drop back behind the ball and stink the joint out again.
And then you get slaughtered for it. Like, O'Neill would be legitimately walked out of the job afterwards. I don't believe that. I think if we'd have defended and been beaten, which I think is a possibility.
Well, look, if they score and it's 1-1 and they go through and away goals, we get destroyed.
But
it's difficult.
You know yourself what happens.
We don't get destroyed. Do we actually avoid a bit of the destruction when the 5-1 in a way?
Well, I don't think anybody believes it was a 5-1.
A little bit of like,
don't do any proper analysis of it.
Because we did vox pops outside afterwards, and it was like, well,
it almost got to a point. It was like sympathy after a while.
Yeah.
Well, it was the cliff edge of a campaign as well. Like, it wasn't as if, well, we need to pour over this now straight away because we need to pick the learnings for a week's time. We've got a little bit of space now to plan for our next competitive match, so it's probably an element of that.
You spent the morning watching Klitschko Joshua again.
Yeah.
You might as well talk about it.
When you said, think of your moments, the first thing, unexpectedly to me, that jumped into my head was Joshua Klitschko. I was kind of surprised myself. So April, like, for a whole host of reasons, because the heavyweight division has been useless for so long. Like, there is a point.
Look at the physique of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want from your heavyweights.
It was also because...
Come on.
Let's look
at the muscle definition there.
Look at the physique on them.
It's almost unbelievable.
What age is Klitschko?
So unreal.
What age is Klitschko? 40?
Yeah.
That's pretty good physique for... I mean, I'm 40. This is what a 40-year-old's body should look like.
Did you see Peter Stringer?
Yes, oh my word. Yeah.
Why did they oil him up? Why did they oil him up?
That is a physique.
Who oiled him up?
Where's the department's physique expert when you need him? Dave McIntyre.
I don't know.
We should totally get McIntyre to do the inner string video.
I'm surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he has the photos already done.
He must be.
a willing shooter.
Stringer must be in at number 3 on the McIntyre list of sort of
heroes.
Biceps.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because in a lot of them, so he's replicating the throw from the back of the scrum, but he has the muscles properly flexed. Which means when you're trying to land, is there not a possibility of...
He also seems to be wearing no underwear whatsoever.
Yeah, you see his arse.
But I mean,
at one stage I thought he was wearing a little tongue or something in one of them.
I don't think so.
You were having a bit good.
I was thinking
magnifying glass out.
Larry David, tick number 10.
I had thought of every other boxing fight I'd seen over the last 10 years that was worth watching, and it basically involved being wrecked, tired at 4 a.m. in someone's house, not enjoying it. A bit like the Super Bowl. I can't make it into the fourth quarter. Something in me says, no, you're done. You have to watch this back in the morning. So it was amazing to be there with pizza, a few people around, a few beers, and it was an unbelievable occasion. And the expectation, if you remember, was, well, Klitschko's in big trouble here, realistically. And then in the fifth, watching it back, Joshua's comes out and says, right, a few tense rounds, I'm going to go for you. And he puts Klitschko down, and you think it's done. And there's this amazing moment then where even the commentary doesn't spot it at first. Klitschko gets back up and hurts Joshua with the left. Karl Froch spots it first. You suddenly realise halfway through the fifth, after Klitschko being down, that it's Joshua who's in bits. And Joshua's saved by the bell. And then Klitschko comes out in the sixth and puts Joshua down, knocks him down, right hand. And I don't know how Joshua hung on for the end of that round. He was definitely saved by the bell at that stage. And so finishes in the 11th. Referee has to intervene. But like as a spectacle, as a fight, it's the only sport I can remember this whole year where I'm watching at home and I'm standing up. Yeah. I can't because I didn't know who I wanted to win.
Well, you're also full of beer, Joe. Let's face it.
I wasn't full of beer. Well, I mean, there's a few beers, but I didn't know who I wanted to win.
Yeah.
Whoever was in trouble at that moment, I wanted to hang on.
Yeah.
And then Klitschko, who I had felt nothing for a decade, just a kind of indifference. The way he speaks afterwards in the ring is just so classy. Like, it's everything which boxing isn't. The two of them were class, and I was tired afterwards. It was just like 29th of April. I think if I could re-experience any moment of sport again, maybe the Wales game. The Wales game was pretty special in Cardiff, but that's right up there. There's something about the heavyweight division which our generation hasn't had.
It was an epic year for boxing all around. Obviously, I mean, nobody's mentioned his name. No, I did not. 100%. No.
Yeah, definitely deserves a mention there.
Yeah, nobody's mentioned the
McGregor.
Yeah,
what do you say about that? Yeah.
It was a farce. It was a total farce from the second it was sold to the minute it finished.
It was a farce. Farce is a bit strong.
Why is it not a farce?
Because it was a relatively interesting contest.
But I just don't think it was a contest at all.
But we had this conversation. There's no point in revisiting, right?
So I said it was a farce, and I'm backing up why I think it was a farce.
I disagree.
But by farce, then you must mean you think it was WWE.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I don't know if they'd agreed in advance, but it's absolutely WWE. 100%.
Fixed.
For some reason.
No, but
WWE
not
is
fixed. Yeah, so what did I say? Not WWE. That's not what I'm saying. But the very idea that somebody of McGregor's capabilities goes into a ring against
WWE.
Me. No, I said it wasn't. Well, it's not. Clearly, I'm not saying it was fixed.
Okay.
Start and finish at that point. But the idea that somebody of McGregor's capabilities in the boxing ring gets in against somebody like Mayweather's capabilities in the boxing ring, that is a farce. It just is.
I don't necessarily agree. But I think that the most interesting thing that happened was the piece in ESPN by Wright Thompson, which got absolutely roundly pilloried by people. And then a couple of months later, it was like, that piece by Wright Thompson. There was elements of that we need.
Elements of it. I mean, he was still talking about the project. I mean, it was the projects that people were...
but sorry,
he also lives in Killiney. Why didn't he go out to Killiney and sort of do a bit of a walk around?
He's not from Killiney. He's from Crumlin.
No, but
the whole point about Crumlin is that it was built as a housing project. Precisely the same point that Fintan O'Toole made his bullshit piece about 5 months later. They are housing projects. Ballymun were housing projects. This is where we decided that we were going to ghettoise the poor people. And when stuff happens in those ghettos, generations after generations of unemployment and poverty and neglect has an impact.
We talked about Stony Batter as a project.
No, we didn't.
So
everybody got upset about that. It was like, whoa, you've used terminology that is American terminology for an American audience to explain an Irish situation that we're all pissed off about because actually it's accurate. That's what I felt. There was clearly some errors in the piece. There was one about people getting off buses on the wrong side of the streets. He said that the sub-editor had taken out something from that was supposed to be in the 50s.
I agree with a lot of that, actually. Although in some respects, it was painted a bit too much for my liking as McGregor is almost in the minority here in that he hasn't joined a gang. It was like, see this baby infants class in Crumlin. For me, the tone of it was about 80 to 90% of them are going to end up in some kind of gang, and McGregor's one of the 10%. That's how it felt to me, and that felt wrong, because we all know lots of people from Crumlin, and the vast majority of them are not in gangs. So that bit was just a touch off. But your point about the projects is very well made. I agree with that. Like, us getting upset about the terminology stuff is crazy. But it was just the likelihood of everybody from those areas getting into trouble with the law was turned up about 1,000%.
I do think that there was a possibility that he saw people around the entourage who may have been involved in stuff that you shouldn't really be involved in, and wrote that up, and nobody had written that. Nobody had written any part of that as the McGregor story in Ireland. And you kind of see, so there had been stories about a well-known sports person and a celebrity Irish person on the front of the tabloids, which ultimately only spills out a good bit later on, and then obviously he denies it all by saying it's all bollocks with his Instagram tweet or Instagram post.
Did it represent the areas? I think was the major point outside of the terminology that was used around it. Like, I mean, I actually don't know, right?
But is it his job to represent the areas? Like, he's not coming.
Well, it's definitely his job not to misrepresent them, I guess, is the thing, right? Like, that's.
I think that the amount of misrepresentation that people applied and assumed was way out of kilter with the facts of the piece. And actually, he was writing about Crumlin in a way that you don't really see people write about in Ireland in the mainstream press. Like that Fintan O'Toole piece about Crumlin, I don't know. I thought that was like self-serving and nonsensical.
Well, it was to point out that McGregor's not nobody to be a hero about, which...
Oh, yeah. Out on a limb there.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about from 2017?
Something good?
David Brady getting mentioned? I mean, we've done a lot of Mayo, obviously, over the last little while. I mean, I don't want to necessarily dip back into that.
For some reason, Tommy's trying to inspire us for 2018 and has just put up the image of Peter Stringer.
Oh, there's his arse. Has he got a bit of a saggy arse, actually? I mean, the rest of him looks pretty...
I don't know.
Pretty slick.
It's the second last one that's...
Do they have to Photoshop out his meat and two edge?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Or is
put it back up again there,
so
Tommy.
Small and shriveled that stage that it's invisible.
Well, you're 40 as well, so...
Oh, no, he's in motion there in a way. The gravity's probably tucking it up back inside him, I'd say.
Well, maybe, they had to...
Do you remember, I don't know if you remember, when you were kids, the National Geographic would have, like, the evolution of man from ape to Homo sapien. It kind of...
I'm assuming that was the whole point.
Right, I don't know.
Wasn't it?
I presume it was, yeah. Well, just to take him through the...
He's a Homo sapien now and used to be an ape.
So we're going to finish in... You have one more thing?
It's just... it was my favourite story of the year to cover, because it was just so... It just gave so much. We don't need to recount all the details of the Team Sky crumbling, but if you haven't read Shane Stokes' interview with Matt Lawton, who did a lot of work on the Team Sky situation, there's just great stuff in it. Like the extent to which Brailsford openly lies and gets caught out to Lawton. Like there's a sequence you can't believe where, okay, Jiffy Bag goes over, what's the story? I've heard about this, I got a leak, and Brailsford says, oh, it was for Emma Pooley, who on her own website, Matt Lawton just Googled. It takes one Google each time to crack the Sky lies. That's the point. He Googles Emma Pooley. On her website, she has where she is across the year for her fans, and she was in Spain. So the beauty is he goes back to Brailsford Lawton and says, Emma Pooley was in Spain. Long silence on the phone. Okay, I'll check this out and come back to you. Rings him back, and it's the flourish here with which Brailsford lies. And what you have to picture here is that as he's lying, Matt Lawton, again, this is not Woodward and Bernstein, Matt Lawton simply Googles Wiggins on this date, and on YouTube, the first thing that comes up, as Brailsford's saying when I'm about to read out down the phone, the first thing that comes up is Bradley Wiggins doing an interview by the team bus. Mm-hmm. Like basically on the steps of the bus, about to get on the bus.
Yeah.
So Lawton's kind of on the phone to Brailsford, has this up on his laptop, and Brailsford's like, just the flourish with which he lies here. Right, Matt, I've nailed it. I've spoken to the driver. The driver actually remembers being really pissed off that it was Brad's biggest win on the road in his career, but he never got a chance to congratulate him. He remembers how vividly he was upset that he never got the chance, that he had to drive away with the rest of the riders and take them to the airport while Brad was still on the podium and dope testing and media stuff after the race. And all the while, Matt's like, okay, this thing stinks more than I even could have dreamed. But that story just kept throwing up, like, almost funny moments like that.
It feels like there's been no repercussions.
Yeah, the UCAD... With the UCAD investigation, I said no charges. We're awaiting the parliamentary report.
That's our only hope.
Yeah, I don't know if there's privilege with that report. I don't know, can Damien Collins, one of the MPs, say, look, this thing stinks, and under privilege I'm saying you're guilty, and I have heard that X was in the jiffy bag. I don't know if that's allowed under the parameters of a report, but that's the only hope now, really.
Has Brailsford won the battle for hearts and minds in Britain?
Well, Chris Froome still gets 45,000 votes in the BBC Sports Personality of the Year, and like Mo Farah obviously romps home. So I don't know if people really care about this stuff in the way that
we do.
Yeah. Like actually, the point about Damien Collins, like the thing for me is that he frequently gets sort of fairly despairing about politics and leadership in whatever country you happen to be in. That's one of the very few times in my life I've gone, wow, this is a guy that's worth getting behind, and actually a pretty good example of how we could do things. And
still a Tory,
because we've had our own, that notwithstanding, we've had our own
Oireachtas Committee.
We've had our own situations, like
that
just farcical. Actually, we should have put that in as one of the highlights of the year.
Do you think I could get some tickets to the game?
No, hang on there a second. Now, and I'll make this brief now. 10 minutes later,
John, what
still rambling on.
Don't answer any questions just yet. We get another 8 people.
But we should have our politicians sit down from a sporting point of view and watch how Damien Collins and that committee goes about their business and replicate it, because it's fantastic.
They might miss a constituency meeting where somebody needs a pothole fixed.
The funeral to go to. But that story's great, and it keeps going. Like it's good. The whole thing is going to unravel. Is the beauty of it, you know? Like sometimes people say, "Oh, it's not all coming out like Lance." Like every day.
Yeah.
It's like every week there's stuff coming out.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I do wonder though about the whole drugs and sport thing. Like I'm watching American football where if you get banned for drugs, it's like 2 games or a 4-game ban, and then you come back and nobody bats an eyelid. Which is what they did in cycling in the 80s. You'd get like you'd fail a drugs test for 10-minute penalty.
Do you think that's a more mature attitude?
I don't. It's a more realistic one.
It is certainly realistic.
Well, we should again look to the sport that we're holding up here today as a beacon of all things good in society. Golf. I mean, this is the way to
no one ever fails a drug test.
treat
just
people
for 6 months.
It's just, you know. Oh, he's gone for 6 months. He'll be back shortly. That's what we should do.
Drugs can't help you hit a 9-iron.
The drugs definitely can't help you take that 5-foot putt on the 18th green at the end of the Masters. You know, that's.
Thank you very much, lads.
Well done, Nathan.
Enjoy your
No, I thought you marshalled that very well.
Very well.
I tried my best.
Very good.
To wrap up, we're going to finish with one of my highlights of the year. This was a time when, well, it was 3 days before the All-Ireland final. Anything was still possible. I may have been just getting a little bit carried away at this stage. No. Well, geez,
another highlight.
Play that out. I'll play that again next year. Actually, I don't want to ruin it. I can use that again in 12 months' time. This is David Brady at the Olympia Theatre, in front of a packed house of Mayo and Dublin supporters. The night after he has lost his car.
What happened to the car?
It's not a laughing matter, in all fairness.
It's not a laughing matter.
It's not a laughing matter.
Forgetting where you parked your car is definitely not a laughing matter.
I didn't forget. You don't know the story.
We don't. That's why you wanted to tell us.
Don't believe everything you read on Twitter. It was Joe, your car was broken into too last night.
It was, yeah.
I'm not right after what happened to me.
So what happened? You were parked somewhere in that area.
I was, yeah.
You vaguely remember.
There's a long story short because.
I know. Give us this.
Oh,
you go on.
I was in Harcourt Street, Hatch Street last night for 2 hours drinking water, so there was no beer on board. And when I was coming out, when I was going in, there was 2. Easy out now. When I was parking my car, I parked up beside an Aviva van. So went in, parked up beside the Aviva van, and there was 2 dodgy geezers. Now, they weren't from Belmullet. So I made sure I pressed the button twice.
What does pressing it twice do?
I went, how are you boys?
It locks it and then it opens it.
So maybe that could be good. No. And then I wasn't. Anyway, I came out. We can curse, it's not live and radio. The fucking car was gone. And I'm being serious on this point. I have a lot of work and I deal with patient records and whatnot. I had 4 new suits from Benetti to wear tonight, tomorrow night, Saturday night, and Sunday night.
Tweets.
I had shoes. I had computers, laptops, the whole lot.
And tickets.
2 tickets. Yeah. And they weren't even mine. I nearly shit myself. So I train a little bit with Westmanstown, so it's the Garda Club. So boys, if you seen the chase we had down Ballybock last night, you wouldn't be booing them.
So go on.
So rang the guards, rang a superintendent, rang the boys in the drug squad.
Tweet it.
And then I tweeted, and I seen one from Nathan, DB needs you now. And I went, I said, you know what, maybe someone might spot it. So guards came and we were going looking and everything else, and next thing, the ladies that had parked in my spot where my car was were going back to the car, and I said, ladies, can you give me a kind of an idea what time you parked your car at? Because I parked my car at 7:10 because I can guarantee it wasn't towed because the cars asked me. Next thing, the lady said, 6:30. I said, but I parked beside the Aviva van at 7:10, and I know, because the guard said, are you sure it wasn't towed now? I said, no. I said, no, we had a thing on at 6:30, 3 all ones. And so they weren't lying. I said, you couldn't have. I went, oh, Jesus. So there was a facade, there was a kind of a building, the Aviva insurance building. Went around the side and there was about fucking 15 Aviva vans. And my car in the middle of them. I have to say, I made a complete fool of myself.